This is an oil on hardboard painting by the Australian artist Albert Tucker. It was painted in 1954, but I think the violence and darkness of it is still pretty relevant to society today. I know Tucker lived through the Depression and the Second World War, pretty dark, violent times. This painting shows how he, and maybe other artists, thought the world or society was affected by those times. It's savage. I think this painting reflects how people were affected by all the violence around them at the time. So it's kind of a political or social statement, as well as being quite personal. One person is stabbing another. It's not some big combat scene or street riot or anything, and it's in what looks like an empty cinema, so it's kind of saying, this is happening close to home, maybe down the street from where you live. It's telling a story, the story of a murder. These figures are in shadow, behind a screen, so it's mysterious and adds to the fear factor. We know someone's stabbing someone else, but we don't know why. It's there in the title, The Assassin, but who's killing who? Maybe Tucker's talking about violence in a broader way, like it's personal because there's two people involved, but kind of indicative of a huge social problem. I think this painting shows how I could talk about stuff that's happening in society that I find scary or that makes me mad. Just the use of colours are a pretty powerful way to describe how Tucker may have felt about the social environment of the time. The greys and black are murky, and it seems to be nighttime. It's a dark space anyway. Then the slash of red pours in, which kind of has a jarring effect. Your eyes are drawn to it. It's extreme and violent. Then of course the imagery shows that someone's stabbing someone else. It looks like they're behind a screen, or even that their image is on a screen, like movie characters. But the knife penetrates the screen and actual blood pours out of the space. It's kind of surreal, like a nightmare. It brings the illusion into reality, as if what we thought was a movie is actually happening. I think it's supposed to shock us. I think it's really applicable to work we can make today. It's pretty easy to get desensitized to all the violence we see on TV and the internet and everywhere really. This image is kind of shaking us out of our complacency. It's saying, this violence is real. Murder happens all the time. Our society is a dangerous place. And even though the imagery is really simple, almost abstract, it's expressive. It shows a lot of emotion, like fear and desperation. The shape of the figures' heads are pretty interesting too. They're like two halves of a circle pulled apart. Maybe Tuck is showing how, in not recognizing how desensitized we are to all the bad stuff that's happening in society, we're kind of complicit in it happening. We don't do anything to stop it, we pretend we don't see it, so it keeps happening. In this way, we're kind of allowing society to kill us, and we're also killing society. The figures become us, and we become society, pulling each other apart, destroying each other. It's a painting that tells us a lot about violence and how it doesn't really have a face, but affects us all, because we're all living in society. It's as if Tucker's saying, the more violence there is in a large sense, through things like war and poverty, the more likely there's going to be violence on a personal level, in our own streets, between everyday people. It's a pretty grim picture, but it could definitely be applied to our world today, as well as the artwork made today.